Blog Talk Radio. Blog Talk Radio.
Franchise interviews. From Easton, Pennsylvania to Sydney, Australia, you're listening to Franchise Interviews. Franchise Interviews. Welcome to Franchise Interviews. Franchise Interviews has been giving an up-close, behind-the-scenes look at franchising and entrepreneurship. Listen to interviews with franchisers, franchisees, franchise authors, franchise experts, and attorneys. And now, welcome your host, Marty McDermott, and Franchise Interviews.
Hi everyone, and welcome to a very special edition of Franchise Interviews, where for over 9 years, we've been asking the Franchipreneurs one-on-one. I'm your host, Marty McDermott. I'm the president of Franchise Interviews, and we have a great show today. We're meeting with Dr. Alejandro Badia, co-founder and CEO of OrthoNOW, and Christine Dura, Chief Development Officer of OrthoNOW. And OrthoNOW is a network of specialized urgent care centers focused on treating the full range of orthopedic and sports medicine injuries on a walk-in basis. I'm going to talk to Dr. Badia and Christine about that in just a moment on Franchise Interviews. So stick around because we have a great show.
The Stone Coat Franchise Opportunity. Are you looking for a unique and lucrative franchise opportunity? If so, take a look at Stone Coat. With a patented process which creates a true stone finish on almost any wall or ceiling, Stone Coat is a true game-changing product in the multi-billion-dollar construction industry. Stone Coat is applied faster, cleaner, and cheaper than conventional quarried stone, which saves both time and money. With advantages in remodel and new construction of both residential and commercial projects, Stone Coat is a true crossover product. The Stone Coat franchise opportunity provides a low startup cost, low operating expenses, comprehensive training, ongoing support, and no royalty payments. For more information on the Stone Coat franchise opportunity, go to www.stonecoatfranchise.com. That's www.stonecoatfranchise.com, or call us at 972-380-2700. That's 972-380-2700.
Franchise Teacher.
Would you like to know how to franchise your concept or grow your franchise business?
Meet the experts at Franchise Teacher.
The goal of Franchise Teacher is to teach, coach, consult, and advise. The team of experts at Franchise Teacher will evaluate your business model and present you with a winning business strategy.
Franchise Teacher will help you decide whether or not your concept works and if it's franchisable. Franchise Teacher is proud to have over 30 years of experience in franchising as both franchisees and franchisors.
Franchise Teacher are developers of over a dozen franchise systems, which include brick and mortar as well as home-based concepts of nearly 3,000 combined franchise locations.
Whether you need to add more units or get more customers, Franchise Teacher can help. We will teach.
Franchise Teacher will help you learn our proven system.
Coach.
Franchise Teacher will help you provide a game plan to succeed.
Consult.
Franchise Teacher will make sure you stay on track.
And advise.
Franchise Teacher will help you learn from our over 30 years of experience in franchising as both franchisees and franchisors. Take advantage of our free, no-obligation phone consultation. Simply go to franchiseteacher.com or call us at 561-385-3032.
That's franchiseteacher.com or call us at 561-385-3032.
Hi, this is Connie McDermott, Administrative Assistant for Franchise Interviews, LLC, and you're listening to Franchise Interviews.
Franchise Interviews. From Easton, Pennsylvania to Sydney, Australia, You're listening to Franchise Interviews. Franchise Interviews.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to a very special edition of Franchise Interviews, where for over 9 years, we've been asking the entrepreneurs one-on-one. I'm your host, Marty McDermott. I'm the president of Franchise Interviews, and as we were saying earlier, we have a great show today. We're meeting with Dr. Alejandro Badia, co-founder and CEO of OrthoNOW, and Christine Dura, Chief Development Officer of OrthoNOW. And OrthoNOW is a network of specialized urgent care centers focused on treating a full range of orthopedic and sports medicine injuries on a walk-in basis. Hi, Dr. Badia. Hi, Christine. How you doing? Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Marty. Good to be here. Christine.
Oh, it's good. Good, Christine. I'm not sure if we have Dr. Badia on the other line, Christine. I don't see him yet, so I guess he's not calling. He's not on the line with you, is he?
He is not. I thought I heard his voice, but I certainly can take over for him.
Oh, that's fine. That's fine. No, I'd be happy. It's funny, Christine, because I've been doing this show now 10 years, and I was recently doing a radio interview, and I was kind of like bragging a bit, saying that I've interviewed every industry in franchising. And then I learned about OrthoNOW, and I said, uh-oh. I said, I don't think I have, So I had to kind of go back and, and I started researching OrthoNOW, and I said, wow. I said, I get it. I mean, this is a great opportunity. But what I'd like to ask our guests, where are you calling from today, Christine?
Scottsdale, Arizona. But our corporate headquarters is actually in Miami, which is where Dr. Badia is. And I will say he is a world-renowned surgeon, so you just never know.
Absolutely.
Good thing
and by the
got
way,
a great team.
Yeah, that's true. And, Scottsdale is very beautiful. I've been to Scottsdale, by the way, and I guess it's safe to say that the weather's nice there today.
I would say that it is turning the corner.
It is. Okay. Well, it's a beautiful place.
So, yes, it's beautiful.
That's fantastic. You have an interesting history, too, Christine. I mean, when I was studying, the history of OrthoNOW, I mean, the company goes back to 2010, doesn't it? I mean, maybe we could go back to the beginning, because Dr. Badia, it seems like he discovered a need in the market, and here you guys are today. Maybe we'll start with a little bit about the history of OrthoNOW.
No, absolutely, and I think we have to go back a little before 2010 to tell his true story. Dr. Badia is, as I mentioned earlier, a world-renowned hand surgeon. He has a thriving practice in Doral, which is basically Miami, Florida.
Right.
And he actually has a surgery center also. And he was looking to grow that practice, right? So he did the traditional route and opened up a general urgent care, which essentially is colds, flus, and allergies, right? Quickly realized that did not help his business at all, but it was actually a franchise that's no longer around now, but he shut that down within about 6, and then recognized, how do I grow my practice? So reopen the doors as OrthoNOW. That was in 2010, and ended up growing. That was actually in an interesting location. It was on the second floor. We've learned a lot since then, which we'll talk a little bit about, but it ended up being a thriving practice. And I don't think anyone wakes up in the morning and decides to launch a franchise, right?
Sure.
You develop a fantastic business model. You recognize that it's profitable and that it works. And him being so passionate about really changing healthcare and the way that consumers actually respond to orthopedic care and receive orthopedic care and making it accessible and affordable and for their patients, he really wanted his peers on board, and that's when he actually launched the franchise. That was back in 2014, and we very, very quickly awarded 10 units. We had the good fortune of actually opening 6 this year alone, which is a testament to our growth. We've got a couple more opening here and pretty aggressive growth plans, which we'll talk about in a little bit.
That's fantastic, Christine. When I went to my first franchise show, Christine, I mean, I thought, that franchising was just food franchises. I went to the Jacob Javits Center back in 1999, just expecting to see like KFC and McDonald's and things like that. And I learned, that a lot of different industries franchise. But, OrthoNOW, I have to say, I mean, as far as, my research anyway, I have to say you must be the first in your industry, which must be a good feeling to be the first.
The first and only in orthopedic urgent care. Absolutely.
That's fantastic. Maybe we could talk a little bit about the business model, Christine. Like you can help our listeners kind of understand the business model for OrthoNOW.
Sure. I mean, I think everybody's probably at this point familiar with the basic urgent care model, right?
Yes.
Although it didn't exist about 10 years ago, it's now the fastest growing market segment in the United States today. And that is also a testament to the industry itself. But the business model is basically, if you think about if you have any basic injury, let's say, for example, I get up this morning and I don't necessarily plan to sprain my ankle. So I didn't plan ahead. I didn't make an appointment. So where do I go? Or worse yet, my child goes down to the soccer field. And what do I do? Right? So most people, they're inclined to think, well, if they're inclined to think that I need to go to an orthopedic, they're going to be waiting 2 or 3 weeks just to get in the door.
Right.
If they go to urgent care, what do they experience there? Probably cannot be treated, for example. ER, same thing, but they're going to wait 4 to 6 hours. And frankly, that level of expert care doesn't exist in our emergency rooms or in urgent care. And essentially what they're going to do is give you a bill and a referral and maybe some ibuprofen. And you're going to end up probably stopping 2 or 3 places before you get the right care that you need, whereas OrthoNOW offers somebody the opportunity to walk in, see a highly trained and expert orthopedic mid-level provider who's a generalist who can actually not only diagnose but also treat that injury. Somebody is in and out within 80 minutes, and the idea is making it affordable, accessible, single point of care. In other words, they don't have to go to 2 or 3 places for the treatment. They go home most of the time. And then what really makes the model work even beyond that is there are some instances where someone needs surgery. And so we have a network of orthopedic, highly trained professionals that are on call with us to either weigh in on some of the more severe cases or take on those surgeries within a reasonable period of time, generally within a day or two. And so, again, that patient receives the care that they need. It's accessible, it's affordable, and that is truly the future of healthcare.
Yeah, I think it's great, Christine. I mean, before OrthoNOW, I mean, before this type of service, I mean, as you were mentioning, I mean, I guess the option was, I mean, people would go to the hospital, and we all know that that's expensive. I mean, that's probably going to cost somewhere in the range of, I guess, like what, $3,000, $4,000. And you were mentioning about urgent care too, which is becoming popular, particularly here, in Pennsylvania, and of course the whole United States. But that's a bit risky as well, isn't it? To go to an urgent care center and or you could decide to do nothing and just hope the pain goes away. But I mean, I guess the injury then could get worse, can it? So there's a lot of terrible things that could happen, with the scenario from 10 years ago. But OrthoNOW seems to be really satisfying that need in the market, aren't they?
Absolutely, and if you think about just general urgent care, about a third of those patients can't be treated.
Yeah.
Most of the patients in the ER can't be treated for anything musculoskeletal, so they're going to get a referral anyway to that orthopedic, and you're absolutely right. 2 or 3 weeks later, before I get in to see that orthopedic specialist, chances are I'm feeling a little better. Chances are I've iced it, I've taken the ibuprofen. Chances are I'm not going to go, right?
Exactly.
And my chances for a full recovery are now reduced greatly. But think about a child as well in the formative stages of their musculoskeletal system. That's even worse. And that's what's happening today, and it's very unfortunate.
This is a very big industry. I guess it's safe to say that this is, over $1 billion industry, Christina. Are there any numbers as far as how big the industry actually is?
It's actually $671 billion. That's what
is it real?
Musculoskeletal care. Well, over $1 billion. You were right. It's over $1 billion.
Safe to say, right?
Yeah, that's what it costs the United States every year for musculoskeletal injuries. Now, that includes not just the care, but also the time away from work, workers' comp, and those types of things, because it's so incredibly common, right? It's strains, sprains, lacerations, breaks. All of that falls under the musculoskeletal. It's basically what keeps your entire body moving and active. And when you look at generations nowadays where even 10 years ago, things have changed dramatically where kids are getting involved with sports much, much younger than they ever were before. High-impact sports, we all see it where kids are even doing yoga and things that they never were before. We're into extreme sports, the gimmicks that you see on TV, but also you look at the aging population, and now you're starting to see some of the aged also that are being more and more active And that is pressing us forward as well. And again, that's just going to get bigger, stronger, and faster. Another interesting statistic, though, is when you look at the general urgent care market. So general urgent care, you didn't see any, even as long as 10 years ago. They've gone from 0 to over 10,000 in that period of time. That's what's making it the fastest growing business segment. It's just absolutely staggering, but completely oversaturated. Because back in the day, these individuals would see an urgent care, see that they were printing cash, right? Thought it was a good business model, a good investment. They'd see an empty shopping center and they'd put one in. They had no necessarily healthcare or medical background. They just put one in a shopping center somewhere, but no real forethought. Well, the model is, people have learned over time that the model is really about the urgent cares with the highest revenues. They're actually retail models. They're in high frequency visited shopping centers like grocery anchors, and where the matriarch of the family makes 2 to 3 visits a week. That has been a powerful play for urgent cares because it's really about changing consumer behavior. And again, if you think about urgent care back in the day 10 years ago, we went to the family practitioner, we got a general diagnosis, and we got a referral. Now we go to urgent care. That's almost our family practitioner. We're doing the same with the only national brand today in orthopedic urgent care, making it a household name so that we're much like the general urgent care.
It's true, Christine, what you say. I remember going to, an urgent care center the first time, and I felt a little weird about it, because my whole life, probably like you, I was so used to going to the doctor, you know what I mean? So it just didn't make any sense to go to an urgent care center, and then, when I went there, I got it, but, for this type of service, I get where, ortho care really is, as you say, you're changing consumer behavior, and it's just, it's an amazing model. I see Dr. Badia just called in. Let me see if I could pull him in, Christine. Let's see. There he is. Hi, Dr. Badia. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I am fantastic. I've been enjoying my conversation with Christine, by the way. She's been talking about the history of ortho care, and I'm just, let's just say I'm very, very impressed. So it's great to have you on the show today.
Thank you. Well, we really have a great team pulling together different areas, the medical expertise, the franchising, the business operations. And, I wanted to expand a little bit. I was listening to a bit, and some of the numbers, it's the injury cost in the United States, and Christine was very accurate in saying that the opportunity cost of when an injured worker, say, is out, that's where the $670 billion is. It's not only the cost of delivering that care, but it's also the downstream effect. So if a soccer mom has to take all day off to take their kid to the orthopedist, so they're out of work for maybe a whole day, whereas with us it's about 70 minutes door to door. So that's the cost there. And then the urgent care market's about $20 billion, and the orthopedic market itself is about a $45 to $50 billion market. So we're talking big numbers. Yeah.
What's been the response, Dr. Badia, to OrthoNOW? When I learned about you, and I started studying your business model, I said, wow, this is amazing. This is fantastic, and I got very excited about it. What's been the overall response to OrthoNOW?
Oh, no, the response is universally positive. Who hasn't had the experience of twisting an ankle and or had a relative? And so the response, the challenge is people changing behavior. So meaning that even my own friends, I have to remind them, why are you calling me from the emergency room at 9 p.m.? Because they're calling me to get them in quicker. And I said, look, our OrthoNOW, there's 2 of them that are open till 10. And you can just walk in.
Exactly.
So, and then the insurance, and that's really been the biggest challenge for us. In other words, the big national players, they're all consolidating. And what's amazing to us is that the insurance market is not banging on our door saying, my gosh, we would love to have our patients not go to the expensive emergency room and instead get to the right person much faster, more efficiently. And that has been the one, I would say, surprise to us, because everybody thinks this is a great idea.
Did your background in franchising, Dr. Badia, before this, have anything to do with, franchising the model? Because you have to admit, I was telling Christine, I mentioned to her, I was doing an interview with a radio show earlier, a couple of weeks ago, and I was mentioning that I interviewed every industry so far in franchising, but I haven't, because I haven't interviewed OrthoNow. You're the first, and it's interesting that, did you know that this model could be franchised early on, or was this something that just kind of evolved over the course of time?
Well, actually, what happened is that I was building a center. I left. I'm a hand surgeon. I left my group, and of course had to have my own surgery center because we were already very efficient. So when I did that, in the building I'm in, there was space, and someone literally suggested to me, "What about an urgent care?" And I said, "Boy, that would actually be great and convenient for patients where they could come in, be seen, and then if they needed my services as a surgeon, the operating room would be in the same building." So it is an outpatient model. But what I didn't realize is the challenge of having a general urgent care center and attracting the orthopedic injuries, because I had no interest in seeing the runny noses or like our franchisee from Savannah, Georgia says the Sniffles Center.
Right.
It's where people would flu season or whatever, they clog up the urgent. And so what happened is I was a franchisee for a small urgent care company out of the Midwest that ended up actually not making it as a franchise. They're very successful in their area, and I learned a lot in the process. But I will tell you, failed miserably against the competition here in Miami and South Florida, and then decided to close and reopen as OrthoNow, which was a focused model, which is really what I always was interested in.
That's fantastic. One of the questions we ask on this show is about technology, and I was reading about an app that OrthoNow has. Dr. Badia, did you want to talk a little bit about that?
Well, we're on a third generation, and we're only waiting right now for Apple, for the iOS version to be approved, and that should be within the next few weeks. So the app will not only tell you where the nearest OrthoNow is, but give you information about what we do, connect you to our social media. But what's really innovative about it is you can, and we're trademarking this, is you hit a button called On My Way Now. So if you're that soccer mom and your kid gets hurt in the game, you can find the nearest OrthoNow. You can have it drive you there. You can send a picture of your kid's injury. You can tell us approximately what time you're going to be there. So we're waiting for you. And now the new version will even send an Uber for you.
Wow.
And Uber themselves are very excited about this because what we're doing is really groundbreaking. And we really call it the Uberization of medicine. Why not be this convenient and this accessible?
Right. It's I started I became a coach for my son for his baseball team, and I have to say there's probably one injury every single baseball game. So I mean you take you take that and you multiply it.
Football?
This is for baseball. Yeah, exactly. And then you take football and basketball and all those other things into consideration, and it's just you look at the market and you get why the market is so big and of course growing, So I think that's fantastic. Our show, of course, relates to franchising. And what types of characteristics then, Christine or Dr. Badia, do you look for in your franchisees?
I would say the most important thing is it the right fit? Right? Is it a match?
Right.
And that's one of the things that many, many emerging brands in franchising miss, especially early on. They generally, the qualification is, can you write a check? Come on in.
Right.
But you start to learn things over time, and it's really critical. As I mentioned earlier, we've had the good fortune of opening 6 already this year and back to back, and so really I would say there's several very important things, again, for not only for us to make sure that it fits, but also for them. In other words, do they have some sort of operational background, right? That's critical path. And that means P&L, payroll. Certainly we have the training and the protocols and the systems in place that somebody could start this from scratch, but that knowledge from the get-go obviously makes it a little bit easier and a little bit smoother in that transition, and it reduces the learning curve, quite frankly. We also like to see healthcare experience. That certainly helps. It's not required, But again, just with that level of background and expertise, that makes a significant difference in the learning curve.
That's fantastic. I think, there's always the perception in franchising is that, you have to have direct experience with that particular category or industry, in order to be successful in franchising. And it doesn't sound like that's always true with OrthoNOW. You mentioned operations and things of that nature, and so that, really makes a lot of sense. How does the training work then, Christine or Dr. Badia? Do they come to Miami? Is that where they go to, for the training? Is that how it's set up?
Well, it actually starts with an onboarding process. So it starts literally day one. The onboarding process is approximately 4 to 6 months, where they're actually literally going through all the protocols to prepare for that training. So from the immediate site selection all the way through build-out, general contractors, all of that. But absolutely, they do come to Miami for a 5-day training. We want to see them immersed not only in our culture, but that they really experience what we mean by customer experience excellence. That's so critical to the success of our franchise locations. So they spend 5 days in Miami after the onboarding process, and they're literally going through this over 1,000 steps throughout that 6 to 9 months to get them open. And if you've ever opened a retail business before, you recognize that each one of those steps can be contingent upon the prior step. So, for example, as a new operator, if you forget to, say, order furniture and that furniture takes 3 weeks to get in and you didn't remember to order that, you probably just backed up your soft opening by another 3 weeks. So we want to make sure that the system is not only followed, but that we're monitoring that with them, we're coaching them along the way, and that they don't miss a beat so that they open it in a timely fashion. But not only do they spend that 5 days out in Miami with our corporate team, but they're also working in one of our centers for a couple of days. Again, we want them to experience what it's like to work in an OrthoNOW. I mean, these patients are already coming in frazzled, right? They're injured, or worse yet, their child is injured. And they might not, they could see one patient in, say, 3 hours. They could see 3 patients in 10 minutes. Who knows, right? They've got to be able to deal with that. They also can experience, who it is they hire, what kind of demeanor are they looking for, what kind of skill set, all of that through that 5-day training in Miami. But then we also send out our field training team before their soft opening, and that's not something that all franchisors do, but we felt it was really critical just to make sure everything was set up and that they open in a flawless fashion. We stay with them through that opening, make sure that the staff is properly trained, the software is in place, and they know what to do when those patients start to cross the threshold. And our marketing protocols drive patients, because remember, we're changing consumer behavior. We actually have an entire playbook that starts about 60 to 90 days prior to that soft opening, so that patients are, again, coming in that door day one, because there's nothing worse than opening your doors just sitting there.
Marty,
of course. Yes, Dr.
The fact is that healthcare has its own particular challenges, as you imagine, regulatory and compliance. And what happens is the franchisees, even if they're from another area of healthcare, there's particulars to this, and that's one of the values of the franchises. We've kind of made all those mistakes, right? And, so we're passing that on to the franchisee. So that facilitates the whole process rather than just reinventing the wheel.
That's fantastic. You can answer the next question for me, Dr. Badia, because you've been doing this such a long time now. For our listeners, how would you describe, if there is such a thing, as a typical day for an OrthoNOW franchisee?
Well, the centers are generally open in the hours where we think there's a higher likelihood of patients. So typically most of the centers will open around 10 a.m. So a franchisee would open their doors. Typically they'll have appointments throughout the day, whether it be at a CrossFit, which are big customers, of course, with the soccer teams, with a big employer. So there'll be a lot of meetings, many times on-site meetings, because people want to see the facility where they'll be referring potential patients. And then people start rolling in, as Christine mentioned. Sometimes they'll usually come in clumps. We get to be slow in the early afternoon, and then around 3-4 p.m. it'll pick up, and then after work. So the day will come in waves, and then generally most of the centers will close between 7 and 10 p.m. And during that time, there's a lot of, as we mentioned, there's a lot of education to the consumer, who is a potential injured patient, or the person who's going to refer patients, whether it be the coach of that, like you mentioned, that baseball team, or the risk manager or human resource person at the company. So there is a lot of education that goes on at the same time of actual treating patients.
That's fantastic. It must be a wonderful feeling for you too, Dr. Badia, to see, the response to the franchise, and I imagine that every time a new one opens, I'm sure it's an amazing feeling for you, isn't it?
Well, I'll tell you in a nutshell, I'm an upper limb surgeon, and the great feeling is I just walked across to the therapy area, and I saw a patient there getting treatment with ARPWAVE, which is his neurotherapy, which we've have some exclusivity in, and they were getting a treatment, and I'm thinking, wow, I didn't see that lady, which meant that person went into OrthoNOW without an appointment. They quickly deemed what didn't need me. She doesn't need a surgeon, so why should she be coming and seeing me, which, my appointments could be a couple weeks out, right? So she can just walk in. They deem that she's a candidate for this particular therapy, and I see already after 2 sessions she's feeling markedly better. I mean, that's a great feeling.
Amazing. I imagine it is. From your experience, and this question is for both of you, Dr. Badia and Christine, because the majority of our listeners, we call them aspiring franchipreneurs. Most of them, they want to get into franchising, but we find that, doing the show now 10 years, they seem a bit overwhelmed. They just don't know where to begin because there's so much out there today. From everything you know and everything that you've learned, what advice would you give to our listeners in their quest to buy a franchise?
I would say start with make sure it's a fit. And by fit or a match, what I mean is as an aspiring franchise buyer, I would look at my financial goals. I would look at return on investment. But I'd also look at things like lifestyle goals. Why am I interested in making this change? And I'll give you an example. I call it buying a job. If I wanted to buy a job, I'd buy a sandwich shop, right, where I get up in the morning, I drive to the same location, I probably wear the same uniform, I turn the lights on, I make a few sandwiches, I turn the lights off, and I go home, and I do that 365 days out of the year. And my return, who knows? But let's just say I've just bought myself a job. Versus, does it fit what I'm looking for in terms of, like I said, making that change? I also encourage people to envision themselves in the business as they go through the due diligence process. In other words, imagine you had just today now opened an OrthoNOW. What would you get up in the morning and do? What do you see that day looking like? And the more you can visualize that, the healthier decision that you'll make. But I think finally probably the biggest point that I always make is that there's a lot of franchises out there that I think use more of a sales technique. In other words, they're selling franchises as opposed to trying to educate people through a due diligence process where understanding each other, determining fit together. I call it going from unconscious incompetence, which is where we all start, right? We don't even know what we don't know. Incredibly uncomfortable. We're getting probably 20 calls from different franchisors or more that are just blowing up our emails and blowing up our phone systems. And we don't even know that we requested information on some of this stuff, and it's a really uncomfortable feeling. But I think that the thing to keep in mind is that soon you will get to conscious competence. You will get to that point by frankly saying no and canceling out some of the franchises that you're looking at. Not only that, but through that process, become more and more educated about what it is you don't want and what it is you do want. And so the more you say no to these franchise systems, the closer you get to yes. So don't give up. Just keep going.
That's a great response, Christine. What would you say to that, Dr. Badia? Because, again, you've been doing this a long time as well.
Well, I have to confess, our orthopedic provider had to show me a complex fracture of the hand, so I missed the question.
That's okay. That's okay.
It goes on. A lot of the stuff goes through our app. But this time she actually came down and showed me an X-ray. So,
Oh, that's okay. That's okay. We were talking about franchising. As far as what advice would you give to our listeners in their quest to buy a franchise, Dr. Badia? Because there's so much out there today. And I was mentioning to Christine that, a lot of our listeners, we find they don't even know where to begin because there is so much out there. And you've been doing this a long time. What would you say to them in their quest to buy a franchise?
I think you have to pursue what you have passion for. Some people love the food, and I think we all love food, but
sure.
But the actual business of it, which people know it's a hard business, right? The restaurant business,
right?
And not every I know I wouldn't have a stomach for that. It just
sure.
But healthcare, there's a lot of rewards in it, but it's, for example, extremely regulated, right?
Right.
So you have to decide. Can you put up with jumping through these hoops that
sure.
before you get your healthcare licensure to open, and you've got to find a medical director, and they've got to get credentialed, and all these things. But if you're kind of a systems person, and you like the fact that this is a business that will always need, it's not a fad gym, it's not a fad yogurt or burger, which may maybe meat will go out of fashion in 10 years, right?
Right.
Whereas you always need health care. So
sure. Good point.
But you've got to have an appetite for jumping through some hoops, and it's not a fast process. It's not like you open, and if your location's great, you're going to have customers lining up for coffee. You've got to get out in the community, so you've got to be very networking driven. You've got to go out and educate the referral sources. But the income is certainly much higher than say a Subway, where we know you've
right.
got to let's open 4 or 5 in your immediate area for
right.
it to be worth your effort. And this is very different. This is I can't say super lucrative, but healthcare is consistent income, and it's very gratifying. You're really doing something.
Yeah, and that's the great part of it too. Is something where you could make money, but again, as it's a feel-good business. Because you are providing a very valuable service. You're talking about the location, Dr. Badia, and Christine mentioned a little earlier. We're mentioning, but we didn't get into specifics. What is the ideal location then for an OrthoNOW?
Visibility. I think that's the main thing. Visibility, and then part of the franchise works. We work with a company, is almost a partner almost at this point, where they help identify based on the demographics. So, for example, where there are a lot of families and active people, a lot of there are parts of the country where they play a lot more sports, the kids.
Sure.
So that is, and then usually near an anchor location, whether it be a grocery store, obviously next to a karate school.
Right, of course, great location.
But so where the people are going to that location are maybe going on a frequent basis for something else, and then they start seeing us. It is not like your typical medical office where you might be in the same building with cardiologists or obstetricians, and you are an orthopedic anchor in that building. That will not serve you right for what we're trying to do, which is really reach the customer who is someone who's injured or somebody who has been having back pain or shoulder pain and finally decided, wow, I see this storefront. It looks easy. I can park right there. I'll walk in and see what the heck's going on with my shoulder.
Right, exactly. That's fantastic. Christine, where do you see the company 3 to 5 years down the road? Because, you are the Chief Development Officer for OrthoNOW. If you could look into a crystal ball 3 to 5 years down the road, where do you see the organization?
Over the last 20 years, I've specialized in emerging brands, and I would say that our goals are aggressive but doable. And I've seen it done before, and I've led the charge before. So we've set forth some, again, pretty aggressive goals, and that's to double in size every year for the next 5 years. That puts us at several hundred units in that period of time. And as you start to really ratchet down those protocols and systems, because obviously they change. It's a constant moving animal, right? As you start to learn,
sure, of course,
bring in more intellectual capital, bring on other products and services, and you really get great at replicating those services, you can leverage that level of growth. We're aggressively targeting unit and multi-unit operators, but we're also targeting area developers, and we are just now launching a whole new level of franchising where we're looking for very well qualified individuals. We'll go through a different qualification process, actually. There'll only be about 54 opportunities in the United States to join us and actually control and develop an entire region or direct marketing area, DMA.
Right.
So I said there's only about 54. So it's called master franchising.
Sure.
It's pretty rare in franchising that you find these opportunities, but we feel that if we don't grow aggressively, that somebody else might, right?
Right, exactly.
Healthcare is a lot about collaboration as well. It's about power. It's about voice. And if we collaborate together on a national scale, that we will have that power, we will have that voice, and we'll be able to influence the future of healthcare at all levels. And that's what Dr. Badia founded this company for in the first place, to make change happen and to drive that change. So we're going to make it happen.
If you notice, healthcare, other than the insurance companies, it's really not, national. It's very regional. So in California, you have, say, the Kaiser Permanente hospital system, right? And that's the way it is. So that's why Christine has really led the charge on developing a master franchise program, because these folks, when they decide to enter that, already have the relationships in their area where we don't. I know South Florida, and it makes sense for somebody, whether it be a big entity who says, wow, we don't want to reinvent that process, but we're the ones with the relationships with the physicians, with the referral sources, with the big companies, even with the insurance company at those locations. So we think that that's how this can grow very quickly. And, we're not against the fact that there may be some models outside of franchising, even joint venturing, and we've had discussions like that as well. So it's a little too soon to tell.
That's fantastic.
Add
Go ahead, Christine.
Add to that, in master franchising, it's fairly risky, right? When you award someone the opportunity to develop, say, all of Dallas-Fort Worth or all of Chicago, and they're expected to develop it faster than we could on our own. And as Dr. Badia said, through their connections, because they should be rooted in that community. But we're willing to take that risk, and we're also willing to share in the reward. So the most significant part of the relationship is that the reward is we're sharing in the franchise fees, we're sharing in the royalty stream, so that somebody can truly build wealth, that they can actually, like I said, control their future partners, and they develop this very, very quickly, and then build that residual income stream and enhance their EBITDA overall. And that was truly the goal, is to do it much faster than we could on our own. Again, there is a risk, but we're willing to take that risk for the right person.
Right. I think that's fantastic. I've enjoyed talking to both of you, Dr. Badia and Christine. What's the best way for our listeners to get more information on OrthoNOW services and, of course, getting information on becoming a franchisee or master franchisee, Christine?
I would say go to our website, orthonowcare.com or orthonowfranchise.com. So OrthoNOW Care is the consumer site, and in the upper right-hand corner, there's a button for franchise. So I think it's important to familiarize yourself with both. Fill out a form, call the number that you see there, and certainly you will actually reach me or one of my team, and we'll take care of you.
That's fantastic. I want to thank you again, Christine and Dr. Badia. You've been wonderful guests, and I'd like to invite you back over the next year as you continue to grow. I think this is a wonderful service, and it's great to always talk to someone who's been very creative and kind of like changing, as you said, consumer behavior. I think this is very exciting.
Thank you, Marty. We're very excited.
Thanks so much, Marty.
Thank you, Dr. Badia. Thanks, Christine. We'll be right back with more franchise interviews. Coming up on segment 2, you're going to hear what every franchipreneur needs to know before buying a franchise. We're going to play a clip from our popular Great Quotes in Franchising podcast right here on Franchise Interviews.
The Stone Coat Franchise Opportunity. Are you looking for a unique and lucrative franchise opportunity? If so, take a look at Stone Coat. With a patented process which creates a true stone finish on almost any wall or ceiling, Stone Coat is a true game-changing product in the multi-billion-dollar construction industry. Stone Coat is applied faster, cleaner, and cheaper than conventional quarried stone, which saves both time and money. With advantages in remodel and new construction of both residential and commercial projects, Stone Coat is a true crossover product. The Stone Coat franchise opportunity provides a low startup cost, low operating expenses, comprehensive training, ongoing support, and no royalty payments. For more information on the Stone Coat franchise opportunity, go to www.stonecoatfranchise.com. That's www.stonecoatfranchise.com or call us at 972-380-2700. That's 972-380-2700. Are you looking for a franchise that delivers? Businesses will always need shipping, and for more than 25 years, loyal customers have depended on Unishippers for reliable savings and exceptional customer service. Unishippers is focused on just one thing: helping small and medium-sized businesses save time and money on all their shipping needs. And as the largest reseller of complete shipping services in the country, we have the buying power to ensure that we succeed. The Unishippers franchise offers low startup costs, no equipment or real estate required because they're not retail, residual income, and a quality of life and work-life balance. For more information on becoming a Unishippers franchisee, go to www.unishippers.com and click Franchise Opportunities or call Franchise Development at 801-708-5822. That's 801-708-5822.
Hi everyone, this is Marty McDermott from Franchise Interviews, and welcome to another edition of Great Quotes in Franchising, where each podcast you get to hear a great quote in franchising. You know, we've been hosting Franchise Interviews now over 8 years and over 400 shows, and during that time we've had some incredible quotes on our show. Today you're going to get to hear from Chris Simic, who is the founder of FranchiseTeacher.com, and Chris has over 30 years of business and franchise experience as an independent business owner, a franchisee, and a franchisor. And Chris said something very profound that we haven't heard on our show in over 8 years. He mentioned that you have to almost work harder to fail at franchising than to succeed in franchising, and he explains why.
Most people, about 90% I think I've seen, buy a business other than they first looked at.
Wow, that's amazing.
So
it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, that's a big number too, isn't it, Chris? You know that most people, they go in with these certain expectations and they come out with something different. And I find that fascinating.
I absolutely. It never ceases to astound me, but I think that speaks to the value of franchising as a business model and a business method, because people don't have to be in something just because they know it. And quite candidly, sometimes getting involved in a business that you would rather do, that you were not involved in, allows you the luxury of taking a new career path and to develop something you never would have had the opportunity to had it not been, systematized and prioritized for you. In franchising, it's said that you have to really almost work harder to fail than to succeed, because if you have a good franchise system, if you follow directions, you have to almost purposely not follow them to not do well.
That's true. That's fantastic. We have this great quote in franchising. I think we're going to put that one in there, Chris. I think that's very original, and it's very true. What advice would you give to our listeners? We find that most of them, they're just beginning their search to buy a franchise, Chris, and we find that, most of them just simply, they don't even know where to begin, like you were saying. What advice would you give to them?
I do, when I speak to people looking at franchise, I give them three different pieces of advice. One, make sure you're looking for a business for the right reason. Now, a lot of people have things happen in their life. They lose a job or something happens, and they react and maybe say, well, okay, maybe I'll go buy a business. That may not be the reason to do it versus having the luxury of selectivity that here's my opportunity that was created by some adversity. Second thing is that they have to make sure that they are able to be franchisees. That not everybody is designed to be able to follow the systems, procedures, and the processes it takes to be a successful franchise owner. And then I tell them quite candidly is pick a couple of the industries and the price ranges that may have interest to you, and then kind of pin down from there, either using the resources of a consultant or a broker or a team member, or on their own. Either way, but I think that if they take their time, follow the steps, and do it for the right reasons, they'll be on a much smoother pathway to success in owning their own business.
That's well said. What's in the future then for Franchise Teacher, Chris? I mean, where do you see the company 3 to 5 years down the road?
Well, Marty, we've been extremely fortunate and blessed that the business has been around, through Century Franchise Group for many years. And our new FranchiseTeacher.com has taken off. We're representing right now, 7 plus brands. I think in 5 years, our focus will really be even more fine-tuned as the consumer or the prospective business owner is looking for more and more specific information. Breaking down to teach, coach, consult, and advise, I think will be a way for us to assist people in what they need. People again don't know what they don't know, but I think the information overload sometimes discourages people too early. They say, this is too much for me to process. If we can break it down into bite-sized pieces, I think more and more people, especially the younger generation, who are looking for the advice and the information they want when they want it, I think is going to do nothing more than continue. Then our next business venture, which launches at the end of this year, is looking to capture all the different franchise brands around the world and put them into one place. So we're looking forward to a future. And franchising is going nowhere but growing. As you been around a long time too, the number of franchise opportunities, and the world's getting to be a smaller place. I think you're going to find a lot of opportunities coming in and going out of different marketplaces in different countries, accessible to more people.
That's fantastic. What's the best way, Chris, for our listeners to get more information on FranchiseTeacher.com? Obviously, FranchiseTeacher.com, but any numbers you'd like them to call or email addresses?
Well, actually, we appreciate www.franchiseteacher.com. And my business partner, Dave, and I offer them the free 1-hour consultation. Fill out the form and take advantage of it.
That's fantastic. I want to thank you again, Chris, for finally coming on the show. I've been following your career for a long time now, and I have just been very impressed with everything that you've done, So when I saw this, I mentioned to you, we don't typically call people to come on the show, but I had to have you specifically on the show. So it was an honor and a privilege to have you on the show today.
Marty, ditto, and again, congratulations on your PhD doctorate. I have read your thesis, and I would recommend it reading if people can get through the information.
I really appreciate that you read it, too, because that's an honor coming from you, so that's fantastic. Well, I want to thank you again, Chris.
Thank you.
We'll be right back with more franchise interviews.
Franchise interviews. From Easton, Pennsylvania to Sydney, Australia, you're listening to Franchise Interviews. Franchise Interviews.